Hello and welcome to the Millwall No One Likes Us Talking podcast show with me, Joe Amphlett, and the boys, Ted, Graeme and George.
Hello, Joe.
Hello, Joe. Now, this isn't, if you're listening to this isn't my fourth take of doing this. This is, we do things
Better attempt.
First time, we don't muck about with this sort of stuff. Great to see you, boys. Coming up, we'll be speaking to Tony Cascarino. He was our first ever guest on this show, and we've got him back again to talk about Millwall's start to the season, but also his recovery from a brain tumour. He had an operation over the summer, but he's doing well now, which is great to hear. We'll be speaking to Tony, and we're going to be talking about a pretty difficult time for the club. We've been on the telly a few times recently. We've been pretty awful. And I always find it quite embarrassing, boys, when we're on the telly and we let ourselves down.
And we lose.
Yeah. No, but even when we're on the telly and we win 1-0 and we still play rubbish, I'm still embarrassed then. So I'd rather we're not on the telly, to be honest. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some new signings. We've broken some records, which is exciting for the first time. We're not going to have... Finally, we can put to bed Paul Goddard and not mention him anymore. That always annoys me. Like when people say, "Oh, you didn't go to the old den. Oh, the old den was the best." The new den's been there 25 years, all right? And I've been going down for 25 years.
I think I'm a Millwall fan.
Yeah, of course it was, you old git.
Not for Paul Goddard, it weren't.
No, that's very true. But boys, hello.
Hello, Joe.
Hello, Joe. Can I just mention about Paul
Goddard
he's off already, and the £800,000?
Yeah. Oh, well, so you've got a little stat on this. You've been doing your calculations, George, haven't you?
Well, I haven't actually. I'm an ass.
Okay.
When did we buy him, George?
Well, when did we buy him?
What year was it?
89.
89.
So he's done a quick calculation, and that is equivalent to today's money of £1,933,151.79p.
My God. And he's been trying to work that out since 1989, hasn't he?
So Eamon says, I'm not convinced that we have, all things being relevant.
For those of you who have switched off, well, you've gone, so you don't know what I'm going to say, but thank you for sticking with us if you have stuck with us off the back of that. Can we start, boys, with the Swansea game, because plenty of stuff to talk about from that game, but one of my biggest bugbears with this football club and the way we play on the pitch against 10 men, for God's sake, as soon as they went down to 10 men, I was like, and I think, Ted, you agree with me on this one.
I think we do, Joe.
We can't play against 10 men. I'd rather us go down to 10 men, in a way. I
was actually saying, Joe, please don't send him off. That early in the game, after 5 minutes...
Yeah.
The trouble is when we're playing against 10 men, like most sides that go down to 10 men, what they do is they funnel back with two banks of four and leave one up front. So they let you have the ball across the back and you can knock it around and whatever. The trouble for us is it actually works against us, because our style of play, we want sides coming onto us. We want sides to be sort of attacking us, if you like.
Yeah.
And instead of that, they was getting a load of people back. But I must, even though I do agree with you, Joe, I must be honest, though, I could not see Swansea scoring the way the game was going. It was the guy Montero who came on that seemed to change it a bit for them. He was a pretty decent little winger, but... Marlon Romeo, who's still learning the game, I mean, he got too tight to the guy for the first goal and he got spun too easily. And then the second goal, what on earth was he doing, throwing the ball back to the guy who was 5 yards in front of him, who just knocked it into the space that he really should have been in defending? You know, it's a little bit of sort of naivety, but at the end of the day, it's easy to look at them things and miss out the things that really did cost us the game, which is we didn't go and kill it off. Once we did score... I was just genuinely feeling, once we got one goal, we'd go and get two or three. I did actually feel that way, you know. But for some reason, we got the first goal and then we seemed to stop playing again and think that was it. And
I think
all of a sudden,
you're right. I think you're totally right. I think that one of the major problems I think Neil's coming up against now is tactically he doesn't make switches quick enough. He has discussions with Dave Livermore on the sidelines. And he's not being proactive. You know, you can see the team getting into the game. You know, why not bring another midfielder or block something up in the midfield, do something like that? His tactical awareness seems to be developing as he goes on, but it's not up to par sometimes, you know. And I totally agree about Marlon Romeo. And Marlon Romeo has to be taken aside about his defending, because a diagonal ball over his head always seems to catch him out. He seems to not be aware that the guy, the opposing bloke, is moving in behind him. And that's exactly what happened for the Middlesbrough goal at the first start of the season. I think it's the first goal, and it happened certainly for the Swansea first goal as well, where he just had to put the guy out, put the ball out somewhere, and he hasn't done it. And I understand why he's in there, and because of his pace, because sometimes we look like a side that sometimes we haven't got a lot of pace about us now. But, McLaughlin is probably a better defender, and I'd hazard to say that he would have probably dealt with that situation or the Swansea first goal a lot better. Also,
and the disappointment is, Joe, the first shot and they score.
Yeah.
I mean, they really never look like scoring, but you always know that somewhere along the line there's going to be one chance fall their way. And, I say it's easy to say, look at the real obvious errors in that, but... Neil's big about the team being to blame for anything. We all win together, we lose together and that. And there was one or two situations where players have to look at themselves and the choices that they made. One that springs to mind was Lee Gregory going through, and he chose to pass to Ryan Tunnicliffe, and I think it was Steve Morrison the other side, but he passed the side to Ryan Tunnicliffe where there was a defender. Not only that, he passed it behind him. When a simple pass to the other side, Morrison was clean through on goal because the defender had come over to cover Tunnicliffe. I mean, again, I'm not... It's just situations like that where we've made the wrong choices that have cost us. He's right, Neil, in what he says about we seem to be getting punished for every mistake that we make. But that's football. There will be games when possibly we will punish other people. But this moment in time, having been as frustrated as I was, because I'm sure we're going to talk about the Rotherham games and the Sheffield Wednesday games, to go then and against Swansea, one of the bigger boys that will be up there, and to lose... 2-1 against 10 men, it's really disappointing. Especially as I genuinely believe Swansea being the side that they are and the big side that they are, if we'd have played against 11, we'd have probably beaten.
What we know is in this championship is that if you score first, you have to make sure you win. And there's been a couple of occasions, a couple of home games where we scored well away, and then we haven't put the foot on the and broken their neck or whatever. We haven't done it. Now the other little thing is
drastic.
I think
he's right, George. Yeah. We have to get rough if we're going to start getting some points.
The thing about it is, the other thing I throw in here, I think Steve Morrison has been and he's a wonderful player, and there's no doubt about it. If Steve listens to this, I think he's a great player. But I think now we've got to use him, being more astute tactically with him. He seems to run out of steam sometimes in the games, and it's difficult for Neil to take him off. And also another player who hasn't been impressive this season is Aidan O'Brien. I mean, he probably... I like the guy Scalak. I think he's a good little winger. He hasn't got a lot of pace, but those crosses he whips in are very good crosses. They're top-class crosses, and they've got bend on them, curl on them as well, and they're difficult to defend. And I'm just thinking, what do we do? I think we've got to go with Scalak and leave O'Brien out for the time being. And I think we've got to use Steve Morrison a little bit more judiciously, maybe coming on to affect a game rather than starting. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, I'll tell you a few points there you've all made. I thought if you're a right back, left back, the one thing you don't do is let the opposing player get goal side of you. And Marlon did that, and he's done it quite regularly. And I know his other virtues, he's good, he's pacey, but if you're a back, that's the first rule of being a back. Don't let the player get behind you. Now, the other thing was that Morrison, Saturday, was going out on the wing, and then we were crossing the ball. Well, we need him in the box. We did this about 3 or 4 times. Steve went out to the wing to help people out, then we crossed the ball. He isn't in there. It don't make any sense. Now, I'm not knocking Steve because he's working for the best of the team, but he's obviously moving out of position to help the team. Someone needs to come up. My last point is we were playing in our half of the field, across the pitch, passing to each other in the sideways motion, and that was hurting nobody. Swansea could take that all day long. Was it? And I just thought, this is ridiculous.
But that comes back to what I said at the beginning, George. They were just falling back. If you watched Swansea, when they lost the ball, wherever it would be, they would just fall back. And we could do what we was watching the likes of Norwich do last year, where they go from side to side, but with no penetration whatsoever. We prefer it when the side's actually pressing us or trying to force us back. And when they went down to 10 men, they threw that out the window. and they all went back. So that's why you move it from side to side. The trouble is we wasn't moving it quick enough for it to have any real effect.
Absolutely,
it was going slowly across from one side, and it had come back. Grumpy old men. Here's a grump for you. I don't want to see Sean Williams coming back to get the ball off of our two centre halves when they've got nobody pressing them. When nobody's pressing them, why on earth are you coming?
How many times did that happen, Ted? Must have happened 10 times.
That's what I mean. And then all of a sudden you've got...
And then he gets the ball and he passes sideways. Now, you might as well leave the ball with them two boys and let them do something.
The point I'm making with it, George, is what Williams does. Williams is our best player. You could call him our playmaker or whatever you like, and he's right to have the ball. But the trouble is doing it that way, you're negating the fact that you've got a spare man straight away, because you've got three blokes there passing the ball between them within a short space of time with nobody near them. So, you know what I'm saying? The numbers are actually in Swansea's favour than ours further up the pitch.
No, let me just have another little say that, you know, we are coating them off for losing to Swansea, but we were mightily unlucky with that Tom Elliott header.
Oh, God,
gee whiz, how that never went in, I don't know. And you know, I know that some people say, "Oh, Tom Elliott, he's the answer." If you've got somebody who can cross a ball like Scalak, you've surely got to have Elliott in the penalty area.
He's been unlucky in a few now, hasn't he? Late in the game, Elliott. He was unlucky at Sheffield Wednesday.
You've got to have him in there to pick up on the headers.
I think Tom Elliott is, you know. Personally, I think we should use him the way a little bit like QPR used Matt Smith. They use him as a sub, and he comes on for the last 20 minutes if things ain't going right, or half hour, and it's a totally different way that you're playing, you know. And I'll come back to Steve Morrison though, George. I think if Steve Morrison is to be left out more often, and I'm not saying that he should at this moment in time, but if he is to be, we need to find somebody else with these leadership skills, because without a doubt we are a weaker side without Steve.
I'm not. So don't get me wrong. I mean, when I'm saying he's going out to the wing, I just think that makes us so weak in the middle of the field for him being out there, you know.
Well, let's have a look at
if he goes outside the area, the penalty area, like to the wing, George is going to shoot you. Stay down the middle, mate.
Let's look at another player, Lee Gregory. How effective do we think he's been this season? Do we think? I mean, he scored against Middlesbrough. He shook off the goalkeeper and when they made an awful defensive mistake. But how effective has Lee been? Because to me, again, he's starting to not make the runs he should be. I mean, he's a little bit hesitant.
The only thing is, Graeme, when the side's not playing particularly well, and I don't think we did against Sheffield Wednesday, certainly not in the first half, and Rotherham was, again, a bit of a disappointment. It's difficult for forwards because they're not getting any real supply. I don't think there's been any lack of movement on Lee's part. I mean, he always works his socks off. He'll always chase things down. He'll always try to make runs and that. But when it's not functioning right at times, you know, listen, I'm not going to build up the fact like George Savile's now gone and it's all down to that. But Ryan Tunnicliffe comes in. Sean Williams has got a different partner there, who may be a slightly different player in his different way to whatever. And we've been a little bit unsettled in the spine with Hutch going out as well and Murray Wallace coming in. I thought done fine, like, you know, to be quite honest. But it does disrupt you a little bit. And I think when that's happening in the side, the forward can make the runs but not get the ball. And nobody notices it and he seems to be out of the game. But it doesn't mean that he's not doing what he does week in, week out. It just means he hasn't been getting the ball. And I think Lee Gregory will always give you 100%. I would love to see, possibly in an away game, maybe, Tom Bradshaw and Lee Gregory up front.
Is Bradshaw a tall chap? I don't know.
He's better in the air than Lee Gregory, I think.
He's not the tallest, George. You wouldn't say he was Steve
But surely if you're breaking your transfer record for a striker, and to be honest with you, and I take your points about Morrison and Gregory this season, they've not set the world alight. You spent this money. Why is he not going straight into the side for me? He should be. That's what the fans want to see. You spent that money. Get him in there.
I don't think you would just buy him and put him straight in, Joe. I think you would give him a bit of time. You know, you'd still be loyal to Morrison and you'd be loyal to Gregory and even Elliott to a degree. And then
but you've lost 3 games in a row, George.
Gradually.
You've lost 3 games in a row. Why not try something different?
I think.
Why put Tom Elliott up front instead?
I mean, I would certainly have brought him on in the Swansea game with much more time.
This loyalty nonsense as well. I'm sorry, you're in the business of winning games, right? You've got to win games and get points. Otherwise, you're having a second season syndrome. You're going to get relegated. You've got to start getting.
I know what you're saying,
wins,
Joe,
and put your best players in.
I know what you're saying, Joe, and I get what you're saying to a sense. That you're paying that sort of money for Tom Bradshaw. He's got to be one of our better players, without a doubt. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to bed yourself in with a group of players. And the one thing I'd say about the players that we've got, certain areas of the pitch there's combinations, and without a doubt the best combination we've got at the moment up front is Morrison and Gregory, because when Tom Elliott comes into the picture, or Fred has come in the past, they don't seem to have the same connection.
I've got a counter argument to that though, Ted, and the counter argument is instead of upsetting the apple cart, you're leaving a player that's just signed for a lot of money on the bench. You're knocking his confidence straight away. Why not get him in? What if he comes in first game, scores a goal, gets that confidence?
Joe,
now he's come and made some pathetic substitutions, appearances, and he's not got that. What if he'd scored in his first game and he was off and flying?
I genuinely believe, I do genuinely believe that Tom Bradshaw before long will be a first team player. I think he is that good. I think he is good enough to go in there. It's all down to Neil. Neil will make that decision when he believes it's the right time to go in.
Break, isn't it?
I
think he was programmed in.
What better game than Leeds for him to come in and score?
I think he was programmed in. He's Neil, in some respects, is a bit formulaic. He programs it in to after the
interview. Was he a robot?
What was that?
Formulaic. I mean, he substitutes. His substitutions.
No, right.
10 minutes from the end, 5. You really have got to look. If you're a manager, you really have got to look and look forward in the game and think, I don't like the way this is developing. Let's make this change now. Let's get more aggressive in that Swansea game and in the Middlesbrough game. Let's start taking forwards off, as Tony's. No doubt we'll mention about that. We'll ask him about that. Instead of taking forwards off, I think you've got to, see the game going and adapt your team to those circumstances.
The one thing I would say is that I don't think them forwards hardly got a good ball Saturday, did they?
No, that's what I'm saying.
And we're talking about Gregory. He'll hold the ball up for you. He's fast. He's nippy. Morrison was working his socks off with two men on marking him all the time. I didn't see a good ball. I saw one good ball to him, if I could put my finger on it.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not saying that Jed's been poor, but he hasn't been at his best, Jed Wallace, and we do need him because he is our most effective player out there when he's on song. I wouldn't say he played bad, but he missed a glaring chance that he knows he should have scored, which may again made it a bit more of a difference if we scored at that sort of time, But, we need Jed to be on full throttle, don't we? And at the moment, he's sort of 2/3 of the way there, I think. So, I'm not, and I will come back to one thing that Graeme said. I do like the look of Juri Scalek.
So do I. I thought he did very
well.
well.
What we do need is someone to come on and tell us how to say these new bloody names properly.
Scalek.
They will be pronounced in the South London way like they always are, Joe.
Carrican? Jem Carrican?
Yeah, there's two players I'd like to talk about. Ryan Leonard, I think, is going to give us a lot more energy. He's a box-to-box player.
And
you've got to look at Wilder at Sheffield United. He squabbled with us, got in the way, got a hold of Leonard, didn't know how to use him, probably wasn't the player he needed. And we've had to wait around whilst he's fiddled and fuddled with the guy. I'm hoping now he's come back. Well,
you can't prove that. You can't prove that, Graham.
Two new signings, fiddle and fuddle.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he will fit into our style of play. I think that's the type of player. I remember him playing at Southend. I remember him getting forward on occasions. He does shoot. And he will add some energy. Jem Carrigan's interesting me because I remember him. He has a lot of skill and that. But can you take players like we did with Ryan Tunnicliffe last season, who've been training in the park after losing their clubs, their contracts of their clubs? I don't know. I think it takes a lot. You don't get a proper pre-season. Worry about Jem. If Jem can come in and play and retain the ball and be a platform, then I think that's another good addition.
Well, what I'd say about Ryan Leonard, Graeme, is that if you think back, he was Neil Harris's first guy that he wanted. He's always wanted him.
He did.
And the fact that we've got him now off the back of selling George Saville for £7 to £8 million, we're quids in, and our manager's got the player he wanted
quids
originally.
in, but if we had bought him from Southend, we would have been hundreds of thousands of pounds in.
Well, we're millions
because
in.
We, you know,
George.
yeah, but
we're
we
millions in,
would
aren't we? But you can't. I mean, he can't go back on that transfer because, for whatever reason, Ryan Leonard went up to Sheffield United instead. What I'm saying is, this guy is the guy that our manager wanted. He wanted him before George Saville. So we've had George Saville in between, and we've managed to get him, the guy in that he wanted in, with £7 million profit on it. So, I mean, it'd be nice to see, because Graham's saying about how does he see him fitting in. I would imagine, there ain't no doubt in my mind he's going to be in the starting line-up against Leeds, and there ain't no doubt in my mind that Neil Harris thinks that this guy will fit exactly with what George Saville was doing.
I have exactly the same thoughts as Graeme does about Cascarino, because I don't think a championship team can be getting their players from picking up players who have not got a club and are training on their own. That worries me. I think you know, these are not the best players, and no disrespect to him. If he proves me wrong, I'll be as happy as a sandboy.
He looked quite good against Plymouth.
Well,
he played quite well.
Plymouth for a League One side, though, aren't they?
They are, Joe. But I mean, what I'm saying is he looked like the player that he was before when he was here. Neat and tidy, but I don't think he's quite a Leonard.
Before we get to Tony Cascarino, just a quick word on George Saville as well, because great servant, George. I think he's been a great player for us.
I think so, Joe.
I've really... he deserves all the plaudits. But in saying that, I'm not that bothered. I'm not that bothered he's gone. I think he's done well, but I think I'm quite happy with his replacement.
I think you're right, Joe. As long as our board start to understand that we can't go back to paying 500,000 players. I mean, we've now crossed the threshold.
To be fair to them, Graeme, they haven't. They've broke the record twice.
Yeah, well, we've now crossed the threshold that we can't go back on, because I don't. I think you've got to. As regards George Saville, you say he was a great servant. He spent a year with us. We really improved him. We gave him the platform. And what I'd like to see is playing. It would never happen now. Is to players to say, look, you give me a season. You developed my footballing career. I was being out the door at Wolves. Nobody particularly wanted me. I'll give you another season, and I'll give you a real try hard to give it another season, because
or take £8 million.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd rather take £8 million.
But in fairness to George, he did come on Twitter and say thanks to the
Well, that's what they all do, don't they, mate?
I don't think anybody can. I don't think anybody can be disappointed anyway about what's happened. Like Joe said, we've got £8 million for a player that we paid 350,000 for, or something in that region. So it's a fantastic deal. As a team, are we going to miss George Saville? I'm not so sure, because, as I say, Neil Harris has actually got the guy in that he wanted before George Saville. So I would think in Neil's mind, and I trust Neil and his judgment of players and whatever that, he's now got the original guy that he wanted. George Saville was a bonus to him, and he's been a bonus to Millwall Football Club because of the amount of money that we've made off of him. And I've got to say a massive thank you to him for what he did for us, scoring 10 goals like he did last season. I mean, he was a big part in why we got so far. But George has moved on. We've got a guy in that Neil actually thought was more suited to that position before George. So let's hope that works out. And maybe next year we might be selling Ryan Leonard for £10 million.
I hope not. Let's get I'm not going to get the Premier League that way.
Anyway, Tony Cascarino's waiting to speak to us, so we're going to go and speak to Cass. But, you've probably not got time for a cup of tea, but make it and take the phone with you or whatever. I don't know what you do.
Have a beer instead.
Have a beer instead. We'll be right back with Cass. Welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast question number 6, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. Before we deal with PQ number 6, we must congratulate Mick Packham on winning our last competition with the answer Kenny Jacket. Congratulations, Mick Packham. As a prize, Mick received a 25-year commemorative Millwall keyring in a Vela pouch. Ooh, sexy. As usual, there were many correct answers, so thanks for entering and better luck this time. Once again, our question will celebrate the 25 years at the Den, Zampa Road. And here it comes. Our first foray into European competition was against Ferencváros. But who scored for us in the 1-1 draw at the Den? He also scored in the away fixture. Please send your answer to studio@noonelikesUsTalking.com. That is all in lowercase, and No One Likes Us Talking is a one word, and talking is without a G.
Also put podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will close next Monday. The winner will be announced on our social media links at Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr, and we will also give the winner a shout out on the next No One Likes Us Talking show, if I remember. Finally, thanks again to our sponsor, WePrintAnyGift.com. Check them out, man.
No One Likes Us Talking is also sponsored by Gary at Tower Design and Print Limited, Dean Wilson, Independent Funeral Directors at Elton, Bromley and Lock's Bottom, Reliance South East Cleaning Services covering London, Kent and Sussex, Bexley Steel, Power Industrial Estate, Slade Green Road, Erith and North East Millwall. You can find our sponsors' details online or at our website at noonelikesUsTalking.com. That is a talking without a G. That's noonelikesUsTalking.com.
Welcome back to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast with me, Joe Amphlett, and the boys Ted, Graeme and George. It's a pleasure now to welcome our next guest. He was actually our first ever guest on this podcast, and it was, for me, very important to go back and speak to him again today because during the summer, Tony Cascarino went under for a very, very serious operation, and we were all very worried about him, but I'm very pleased to say that he's absolutely smashed it and come out the other side fighting fit. It's a pleasure to welcome Tony Cascarino. Tony, thanks so much for joining us, mate.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried, Joe. You said I went under. Under what? I went in a coffin.
Cass, explain to everyone that doesn't know, I'm sure, because a lot of Millwall fans will know what happened, but tell us what happened, because I think I was out with you for dinner back in February for lunch. I went out with you for lunch, and you told me then, and I was quite shocked and quite surprised at how calm you were about the situation. But tell everyone about it, mate.
Yeah, well, obviously I got diagnosed with it was called a new. Oh God, I forgot what it was. I've lost my brain. An aroma, which is a type of tumour, and it was in from the back of the ear, contacted to my brain. So with this type of tumour, an acoustic neuroma is actually what exactly is. You have three options. Sometimes they can be really small and they can monitor them and give them radium treatment. You can also just manage them with tablets, but when they grow to a certain size, they have to be operated on and removed. And mine was the third option because it was the size of a golf ball. I was lucky; it was benign, so I've always held on to that. That's the most important thing. A cancerous tumour is far more serious. I managed to get a full recovery. I was under the knife for best part of 12 hours. It's nearly been a couple of months now since I had the op, and I wouldn't say I've made a full recovery, but I'm back on track to, be pretty soon to be doing a lot of work with you boys, and just, it was not a nice experience, but I feel very fortunate that I managed to come out unscathed because they removed the tumour completely, which left me with deafness in my left ear completely, still tinnitus, still numbness in my left side of my face, but there could have been far worse scenarios.
Was there any symptoms with it, Cass, or was it just the large lump that came up?
No, it was. I noticed I started to get deaf in my left ear, and by chance my other half's sister had a tumour, which was exactly the same 17 years ago. And she said, you've got to go and sort that out because I had tinnitus in my left ear, this numbness, I couldn't taste food. And it was all on my left side, so it sounds really weird that you can't taste on one side of your mouth because it felt like a metallic taste. So I then went for an MRI scan. My doctor recommended me to have because he said what I might have immediately. He said, no, I've got to rule that out, so you've got to have an MRI, which I did, and lo and behold, I was then in front of a neurologist telling me that I've got a tumour and it's got to come out, within the next 3 to 6 months, which I managed to creep in the World Cup, which I was delighted with, so I could watch, shows you how sad I am. But I thought once that was over, I could get into hospital in Adamsbrook in Cambridge, and I got to say they were superb, and but feel very, very fortunate.
I better check myself in, Cass, because my missus says I never hear anything she says. So perhaps
That's not a bad thing.
But there was a lot of love on the Millwall message boards for you, Kaz. So we're all great. It's, you're fighting fit again and getting down to what you can do now, and you know best, and giving us lots of punditry again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you boys are probably not as happy as you were last year at this moment in time.
No. It goes without saying. Yeah. I mean, you suffered a second season syndrome, didn't you? Do you think we could be suffering from the same sort of thing, or do you just think it's unfortunate start we've had?
Well, I've had to be honest. I think Millwall overachieved last year. I think Neil got a lot out of the side, and all that grit and blood and sweat that they put into every game. I was always wondering, could they do all that again? Because everyone was scared of playing Millwall by the end of the season. I remember speaking to Joe about Millwall towards the end, and I just thought the last four fixtures were dreadful for Millwall. You know, Sheffield United, I think it was Fulham, Borough, and then Villa, wasn't it, at the end of the season? And I remember thinking, cool, that's a big ask for them to get a lot of points. And, you know, we played really well against Fulham for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and by the end of the game, it's 3-0. You think Millwall have been battered. And I just feel Neil got a lot out of that team. And do you know what? You mentioned second-year syndrome. I think it's a big part of you just lose that slight edge out of the team. If they just can't get that, you know, performance of absolute maximum for 90 minutes, I think Neil's team will lose games. Instead of, you know, winning them, they'll draw them, and instead of drawing them, they'll lose them. And I think that's where I see a similar scenario with Millwall as when we were there, that we just dropped our levels slightly, and it made a massive difference.
Do you think they have to sort of slightly reinvent themselves, Cass? Because, as you say, at the end of last season, people were frightened of us, really. We was a strong, solid side that, you know, didn't take anybody for granted. We give everybody a good game. I just think we need to perhaps change ourselves slightly, just give ourselves a different sort of outlook of way that we play. And the new boy, Bradshaw, coming in could be a big part in that, I think. Yeah,
it's a tough one to answer, because the games I've seen of Millwall this year, I've always felt, if you take the Middlesbrough game at the start of the season, superb for 45 minutes, 2-0, and Neil made a few substitutions, obviously took off the forwards towards the end of the game, trying to hang on to what they had, and end up getting a 2-2 draw. I've seen Millwall be in games about 3 or 4 times this year where they've had half a performance, which I mean, they've been great first half or terrible second half, and vice versa. And I think that's cost them quite a few points this year, that they haven't seemed to be able to do a 90 minutes performance regularly. And I think that's probably frustrating, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened with the Derby County game. The first 45 minutes, there was energy, power, pace in the team. Second half, it was like a different team. They didn't have any of that. Yeah, well, I would have said Sheffield Wednesday away. You know, you boys remember that game. Yeah. And I thought Millwall were dreadful first half, and by the end of the game, they looked like they could get something out of it. And I think that would be concerning, Neil, is why the team have suddenly not getting through a game of 90 minutes as like they were last year. Last year, there was numerous games that Millwall just kept going and going and going. And teams were fighting towards the end, but unfortunately it wasn't enough.
Cass, we've been discussing when the other team goes down to 10 men that we do struggle to adapt to that. And for me, a slight criticism of Harris would be that whenever something changes in the game like that, he doesn't really have a plan B. Millwall playing this one kind of way, and if that doesn't work, we kind of seem to get a bit stuck.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Joe, because there's a lot of managers in the modern game are looking that there shouldn't be a plan B. They're looking at going, well, plan A has to be really good. And if we're really good at plan A, plan B should never come into the game plan. And I sort of get it. I've seen a lot of substitutions, like I mentioned earlier, with substitutions in particular game, and, you know, Millwall cruising, and certainly did it against Middlesbrough, taking off forwards, and I think it's an easy one to do. Joe, whenever you mention games changing, normally so many managers will take off forwards when you're in a decent position, but that just invites pressure. Because what you do, you defend with all more numbers. You know, so when the ball gets played out, you find that the opposition get it, and it indirectly becomes a direct game. All you're doing is getting balls into channels, you're trying to hit the forward, and then people join in. But it doesn't really work with Millwall. I think Millwall are a two-forward team, the way that Neil wants to play. If he's going to make changes, I don't think it needs to be the forwards. I think if it's going to be a forward coming off, it's got to be a forward going on. Stay with what you're good at 4-4-2, and I think that's Millwall's biggest strength. When we've looked at games and we're talking like you've mentioned, going down to 10 men against Swansea, and then once you go to 10 men, you think, well, we're 1-0 up, we can still manage, we'll control this game. By the end of the game, Millwall looked like they were the 10 men and Swansea with 11. So it's a real tough ask on, because we all question managers, don't we? We all have that issue of what they've done and can substitutions be better. I like Millwall in a 4-4-2. I don't think he has the personnel to play much a different way, Joe. And when they do, I think they look a poorer team.
What about... this is one for you, Cass. So you've just broke records on a new signing and a striker, and you're expecting them to be in the team, and they're on the bench. I mean, I didn't understand that the other day against Rotherham.
He might have showed a bit of loyalty.
But he didn't play Morrison. He played Elliott instead of Morrison. So
right, okay.
I was
one, Joe.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I was just shocked that. Do you know what? I wasn't surprised. I thought it would be Morrison Gregory, but it was actually Elliott Gregory.
Yeah.
And Bradshaw on the bench, and I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Millwall are not blessed with loads of money to go out and buy forwards for decent money, and then afford to leave them on the bench. When you lose games, Joe, and you're not quite getting the desired results, questions start getting fired at you. And I think that happened slightly towards the start of last season with Neil, and then he gradually improved the team with every window. And I think he might just want him to get him into the Millwall way of saying, right, you're going to be playing, but I'm going to play you when I feel fit. So you just watch us, you train with us, to let them settle in. I don't think Millwall have got enough players to be blessed and going, do you know what, we can afford to go 2, 3, 4 games without putting you in. It's a real tough one for managers, because you get questions on so many different angles of what you do. I was surprised he dropped the keeper, didn't he, for Saturday?
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of eyebrows were raised at that, thinking, well, this was a keeper you were trusting, and suddenly he's, pulled in another one to come in and do a job. And I think Neil's probably spinning plates a little bit at the moment. He's looking for results. He knows how good they were in the second half of the season last year, and he probably feels we've lost a bit of that. How can I get it back? Will I have to upset a few in the dressing room, leave 1 or 2 out? Will I get in a new player that, have someone fighting for their shirt? Because Gregory and, Morrison were brilliant last year for Millwall, and they filled a big part. And I know Morrison's older and really long in the tooth in the football, but has always done a decent job. So I think he's just more likely spinning plates, trying to find something out of his team.
When you've lost 3 games on the bounce like we have, people, certainly supporters, they're looking at your tactics all the time, and your formation. I mean, I'm a big 4-4-2 man. I think you are when it comes to Millwall. And they're saying, should we change the tactics? Should we change the formation? I don't think we need to. I remember Holloway playing all different formations, and none of them worked because he didn't have the players to do it, but he was trying to do it.
Well, as I said before, I think Millwall the personnel suit Millwall to play a 4-4-2, and I think you have to stay as a 4-4-2. We're talking about games here that Millwall weren't a 4-4-2 at the end of the game against Middlesbrough. Millwall were more like a 4-6.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, you've taken off both your centre forwards, and so that formation has gone out the window by the end of the Middlesbrough game. And I'm sure you lads can mention other games during the course of the season already where it's changed. And I just think they have to stay with that one and bring in personnel who come in and fit that formation. We did, going back, you boys remember Paul Goddard coming in. It was me and Teddy, and they tried to bring in something, Doc and Frank McLintock, bring in Paul Goddard. It was a terrific footballer, but boy, he didn't fit out of the way we played.
No, that's right.
And I think you've got to be so careful of changing too much. You've just got to find people who come in. I know this is a bad example, but if you look at Man City's and Liverpool's, and they are bad examples because they're the top teams and lots of money, but any player that comes into their team, as we've seen the last 2 or 3 years, will fit their formation. They won't be coming in to give something different. They'll be coming in to say, this is how we play, you are perfect for this type of style, you will come in, a Navigator or, Chamberlain will come in. So they've done that with numerous players. And I think in a lower standard way, because Millwall are, I think Neil has to try and bring in players that just fit in the way they want to play.
And do you think maybe as well, Cass, after last year, Neil's so big on this being a tight-knit group and the momentum that they built up they felt loyalty to one another. We was a good team. We've always said we haven't got the money to buy the best players, so we have to be a good team. With the transfer, where obviously George Savile's gone, a couple of other people have been talked about and whatever, it's probably unsettled them a little bit. I mean, I think thankfully it's over now and they can get back to what it was. But we need to regenerate that sort of attitude that was in the side of we take on all comers. I think it may well have just gone a little bit at the start of the season.
Well, I think he managed the loan market really well last year, Neil. He had a few players that come in from clubs who had a bit of a point to prove. They were on a loan Millwall, but done terrific. And I think that was big for Neil. And he didn't have the luxury of going buying anyone he wanted. So it fitted for last season. But once you come into this year and you've lost, like you say, a Savile, and which he has done, he's signed some of them loan players, hasn't he?
Yeah.
From last season into him. And I bet they're not playing quite as well as when they were on a bit of a trial last year.
Claes, can I ask you, you've been in dressing rooms and you know when a big player goes, does it unsettle the other team? Doesn't the players think, well, if he can get money, he's going out to Middlesbrough, and somebody like Jed Wallace was talked about as a target for Middlesbrough as well. Does it unsettle these players? Can you do anything about that, or are they looking to move in the next transfer window?
Look, when there's people looking at you and saying, "Oh, he's a good player at Millwall, and that lad's a good fullback, good centre half, whatever," get their heads turned. But if you've got a great mentality, I think you can go through that and you'll prove your worth. I mean, he didn't unsettle Millwall when I left, because the next year Teddy got 39 goals, didn't he?
He did.
38, I thought it was. Time, but there you go.
He probably claimed 39, no, Cash.
Yeah, he did. But that's what I'm saying. It's a tough one, because I've always felt that attitude has been superb at Millwall, especially under Neil. And he's probably finding the first tricky patch of his management career, where he knows supporters are thinking, as Harris, the famous old line, has he taken us as far as he can? And so I know Neil's thinking a lot, and you can overthink things for me. And I think he'll go back this next game coming up. He'll go back to his real tried and trusted, and think, maybe I've upset one or two leaving them out and changing things slightly around. But I think he'll go that way. I think he needs your best honest 11. Your 11 that you really feel will roll up their sleeves and put in a big performance, because I think that's what's needed.
I mean, we always talk about, the media talk about losing the dressing room. I mean, can you do that? Can you say players just don't take any notice of you anymore? We're not happy? Because, I mean, people, the leaders in the dressing room, like a Steve Morrison, like a Sean Hutchinson, are probably very vital to Neil Harris.
I just think levels drop sometimes, and that's the thing that a manager has to do, is manage that dressing room where, I mean, I always look back at Doc and, I felt he was very unfortunate to lose the job, and, I'd gone and a few others were leaving, had their clubs looking at them, and it's a tough one. It's such a tough one to answer, because I don't, unless you're privy to that dressing room training ground day in, day out, you don't quite know what everybody's like. I think the season last year was tremendous, and then a lot of people talking about Millwall, and a lot of players who really stood out. O'Brien last year, wasn't it? He'd done brilliantly. Yeah. And I think it's just a funny one. And Neil probably can't quite get his finger absolutely on the pulse of why it's gone wrong. Yeah. But it's still not. Millwall were in a bit of trouble to start last season, wasn't they?
Yeah, we didn't start too well. No, that's right.
Yeah. Looking forward, Cass. I mean, is it a great time to play Leeds after the international break? They'd had a bit of a rest, and, they'd played this very high-pressing game now. What do you think of that Leeds game? It's going to be a pretty tasty game down the Den, isn't it? Yeah,
well, I would say that Millwall have to play the way they're good at, because one thing is I thought Leeds find it very hard to play a team that just closes you down and you match their work rate. I think that's where Millwall can make the difference. If they can match Leeds, then you're halfway there. I watched Derby versus Leeds, and Leeds just wall over Derby, and Lampard's Derby at that particular time didn't look like they could match the work rate. Then they played Middlesbrough last home game, and Leeds were matched all the way by Borough. Big, strong, solid back four, really made it difficult for Leeds, and Leeds got frustrated, and to be honest, I thought Borough could have won that game. But for me, Millwall have got to have that their best style, which we've talked about, their 4-4-2, all over them like a rash. It's got to be, and Neil has got to stay with that. That 4-4-2 where they just make it hard all over the pitch, because Leeds will gamble. They'll get loads of players forward, And I think if they do, that's when Millwall can expose them. Their fullbacks get very aggressive. They get that number 10, Salas, Sias, who loves to float, and he's a bit of a luxury. But have someone, make sure someone's on him and like a rash, and don't let him get on the ball. It can be done, but it's got to be based on... I listened to Pep Guardiola last year, and he said, first and foremost, anyone in my team has to run. Has to run. And it's a simple phrase, but what he meant is they have to run their socks off for 90 minutes if you want to be in my team. That's the very best manager in the world talking about running, not talking about technical ability and how good they can do this and do this. He was talking about running. And I think Millwall are a good running side. Make sure you do it against Leeds, and it'll give you a chance of winning the game.
Cass, absolutely brilliant to hear from you, mate, and speak to you again. And I'm so glad that you've come through on the other side and you're fighting fit. You lost a bit of timber as well, mate. You're looking good.
Yeah, I've dropped about a stone and a half, Joe. I'm trying to keep it off, but once I'm back in TalkSport with you boys and getting Bob Mills I don't know.
It'll soon go back on, Cass.
And when are you planning to be back, Cass?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Joe that one.
All right. Okay. Who's your agent?
I'm working on Cass, but you're back on the weekend breakfast this weekend,
yeah,
though, aren't you?
Saturday. I'm on this Saturday. Yeah, with Georgie. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great stuff.
Brilliant, Cass. Thanks so much, mate. You're a star.
Thanks, Cass.
Bye bye.
Cheers, Cass.
Cheers, Cass. Tony Cascarino there on No One Likes Us Talking, and a pleasure to have him on, and so great to see that he's back fighting fit. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast question number 6, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. Before we deal with PQ number 6, we must congratulate Mick Packham on winning our last competition with the answer Kenny Jacket. Congratulations, Mick Packham. As a prize, Mick received a 25-year commemorative Millwall keyring in a Vela pouch. Ooh, sexy. As usual, there were many correct answers, so thanks for entering and better luck this time. Once again, our question will celebrate the 25 years at the Den, Zampa Road. And here it comes. Our first foray into European competition was against Ferencváros. But who scored for us in the 1-1 draw at the Den? He also scored in the away fixture. Please send your answer to studio@noonelikesUstalking.com. That is all in lowercase, and No One Likes Us Talking is a one word, and talking is without a G. Also put podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will close next Monday. The winner will be announced on our social media links at Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr, and we will also give the winner a shout out on the next No One Likes Us Talking show, if I remember. Finally, thanks again to our sponsor WePrintAnyGift.com. Check them out, man.
No One Likes Us Talking is also sponsored by Gary at Tower Design and Print Limited, Dean Wilson, Independent Funeral Directors at Elton, Bromley and Lock's Bottom, Reliance South East Cleaning Services covering London, Kent and Sussex, Bexley Steel, Power Industrial Estate, Slade Green Road, Erith and North East Millwall. You can find our sponsors' details online or at our website at noOneLikesUsTalking.com. That is a talking without a G. That's noOneLikesUsTalking.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Millwall No One Likes Us Talking podcast. That's what it's called, isn't it?
Take 10.
He's gone today, hasn't he? He has gone.
Shut up, you old miserable.
Got somebody else's teeth in.
Anyway, well, this is a new feature on the show we're going to do now. It's called Fans Questions for the Show. I don't think it's actually called
that's
that,
original,
but that's what
isn't
it says at the top of my sheet. Fans Questions for the show. Have you got a better name for it, boys?
No.
What do you want?
Do we need a little jingle for it, don't we?
We do need a jingle.
Yeah.
Fans Questions for the show. Fans Questions for the show.
Ooh. Oh, God.
It's time to read them out, Joe's Fans Questions for the show. Okay, so it's not the greatest start to the season. The press are asking, after 3 successive league defeats for the first time in almost 2 years, could it be time to fiddle, a lot of fiddling today, and try something different? So the questions have been coming in. This is from Black Cab Rob. Okay, and I should just say before that we get into Black Cab Rob, that if you want a question read out on this show, just go to the email, which is what, George?
No one likes us talking.com.
No, it's not. That's
no,
not. No, no one likes us talking at gmail.com.
That's it, yeah. See, I'm not putting these teeth in anymore. I want sense ones.
Does anyone know what's going on in this show?
No, they don't. No one likes us talking at gmail.com. And there's no G on the talking because we are hip and urban. This is Black Cab Rob. He said, no need to press the panic button. Right, okay, so what we say... Hold on. Hold on. Is it so? Could it be time to fiddle and try something different? Is that the response? That's the question we put out. Is it?
No, we're asking. If you read the first part, you'll see what we asked. You got the bits with you.
Yeah, no, I've just read out that. I'll just read what Black Cab Rob said. And Black Cab Rob, thanks so much for sending in your email. No need to press the panic button. Give the new players time to gel. I imagine that's how he talks because he's a cab driver. We just need to keep out of trouble this season. And this is in capital letters, so he shouted at this. Then we would be better placed to have a go at reaching the playoffs next season. Next also in capitals for some reason. Love the new show, chaps. Just wish it was still live. That's also in capitals from Black Cab Rob. This is... Thanks, Rob.
You don't want us to mention anything about it? No, okay. You just read
it. Well, let's just mention that.
Yeah.
I think this is second season stuff.
Second Seedrum.
Yeah. This is second season stuff.
He's got
Don't worry, none of this is going out. We're going to edit all this out.
Right.
So it
this
sounds
is second
smooth.
season stuff, and he's got a point. Keep in this division and see if we can build next season. There you go.
Okay. D.A. Stevenson said, that sounds like an author, doesn't it? Have you read the new one by D.A. Stevenson? It's a thriller about a murder on a train.
Is it like 50 Shades?
Yes, it's a sexy romp aboard a train, murder mystery. D.A. Stevenson said, has Neil taken us as far as he can? He says, yes. Has he lost the dressing room? Yes. Has he got a plan B? No. Does he make the right substitutes at the right time? No. Should he go now to retain his legendary status? Maybe. Is relegation a real threat? Yes. And then he says, what is the point of O'Brien?
Blimey. Well, Dave's never short of...
Oh, it's Dave. You know Dave, do you?
Well, I know of him.
Is he an author?
No. Not that I know of. Okay. He's never short of being honest, but I can't agree with many of them things. And I think Harris has got to be given a bit of time here, because I think one of the things that he's found himself in is a really unusual situation with all these bids coming in for our players. This has got to make his life much, much harder, actually.
Well, a lot of people elsewhere, you hear it now, especially when we was kind of going for the playoffs last season, pundits that really don't know too much about the club and don't know too much about how we were playing and that sort of thing, were saying, Neil Harris is one for the future. He could be, taken away by another bigger club. But I must admit, and Neil is one of my favourite all-time players, legend. When it comes to his managerial style, I've always struggled slightly. And you can't say anything bad because he's such a legend. And you can't argue with his record either. He's improved us every single season so far. But
I think
the first two seasons, I must say, Ted, the first season anyway, when we got to the playoff final, I thought our brand of football was just so dull and that sitting back and inviting that pressure on. But I can't argue with it because it got us promoted in the end. I think we played a lot better last season, but I don't know.
What I was going to say, Joe, is that the first bit that Dave says about Neil, I think is wrong and rubbish, if I'm honest, Dave. Sorry, mate, because to me, Neil Harris is still a young manager who's learning, and he'll tell you that himself.
There's no way he's lost a dressing room either.
No. There's a certain thing that Neil Harris demands, and it's the sort of thing that we as Millwall fans love and want, and that's he demands a bit of passion, a bit of loyalty, and he gets the group together with an attitude of a never say die, and that's one of his traits as a manager, and will be, because that is the way that he likes to be himself. One thing that I may think about I'll say about it, and I think Cass mentioned it a minute ago, is that sometimes it's easy to overthink things, and you think too much about it and get I wouldn't say too many people's ideas in your head. I know Dave Livermore speaks to him, and what's his name from South in the Burnett. Barrett, sorry. You know, I know he takes in the information from them, but maybe sometimes it needs to be a little bit clearer and a little bit more Neil's faults, if you know what I mean. Or
well, the substitutions, I think, have not is a good point from.
Well, I think you can
Dave.
talk too much about things, Joe. You know what I mean, and that could be the substitutions. You know, I see him and Livers talking there sometimes, and maybe they need to be a bit quicker in their decision.
Bradshaw only came on Saturday after the goal had been the second goal had been scored.
Yeah, well, I say maybe they need to.
Surely he should have come on earlier to try and win that game.
Well,
I often find Harris's subs have
yeah.
been. That's one point I do agree with him on.
Can I want to say?
But I think Harris will always be a legend, whatever happens.
I want to say a little bit about Harris, and I think we've got to give it a little bit of perspective. I mean, he is a young manager in the second tier of English football, so he's learning his trade very fast. And in this tier, you've got ridiculous sums of money now being paid for players that, you know, are very average. I mean, we even are rubbing our hands together because we got something 7 to 8 million for George Saville. What a wonderful deal. I think, you know, this whole ethos of Millwall is being a small club, and he is battling with a small club. And I think if he is going to grow up, he's got to make the club grow up as well, and he's got to make them perform on a championship level. At the present moment in time, we still seem to be seeing ourselves as a small club, and we're just lucky to be there. All right, I think
that's a good point, Graeme, because the standard of football that Neil Harris is managing in is very, very high. You know, I mean, and we all know that sort of standard as well, which is unfortunate for Mill so far this season. You make a mistake and you're punished, and we have been. And Neil's been quick to admit that. And the trouble with that is not only the team, even a manager, if he makes a mistake, can get punished.
The only sad thing about it is if he gives us down this losing spiral, then there'll be a lot of pressure on him to be replaced. And I hope he wins. I hope he gets out of this, because I think he's a fine manager. I think he will.
Right, listen, there's so many emails here to get through, boys. Gerard O'Rourke wants to have his say. Gerard O'Rourke. Good names. I was going to say, shall I try and read it out in what I think his voice would sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Hello, it's me here, Gerard O'Rourke. No, I can't do an Irish accent. It sounds Irish though, doesn't it? Is this... I won't do it. I'll just do my normal voice. Is this the first time in 4 years Neil Harris is facing pressure? 2 playoff finals, followed by a credible finish last season. Now 3 straight defeats in games we would expect to pick up a few points at least. Also, Harris received financial backing from the board. The question is Harris facing a crisis? And secondly, if so, has he got the ability to get us back on track? This is Gerard's own view. He says, the team has been unsettled by injury to Hutchinson and transfers. We have a short break followed by a run of games we should look forward to and start getting a few more points on the board. My concern is that teams have worked out that although we are excellent counter-attacking, if you let us have the ball, we lack ideas. Anyway, bring on Leeds. Come on, you Lions, says Gerard.
Yeah, there's interesting points there. I think he's more under pressure at the Bristol Rovers game a couple of seasons ago, when he's got to win that to stay in the playoffs. I think he has gone through periods of pressure in his time. This is a higher level. This seems to be a situation where he might have had a little bit of recalcitrance in the squad, maybe he has to deal with because of the bigger money that's flying around at this level. But yeah, I think, you know, it will make him a much better manager once he gets through it.
Well, he struggled a bit at the start of last season, Joe. You know, we're not much different.
Who's to say we don't make the playoffs this year? It's so early.
That's right.
It's so early in the season, so
and he needs to be supported.
I do bloody hate losing at home this early, though.
Yeah,
losing at home this early in the season. You want the Den to be a fortress. That's how people talk about it. Not lose this early.
Well, particularly since you've been goals up. That's a little bit unforgivable. When you're goals up, you have to get snap their necks.
That hurts everybody, don't it? Because that hurts the team, that hurts the morale, it hurts the supporters. So it runs through the club. Next one, Joseph.
Jeff Mason. Do we know Jeff?
No.
We don't know Jeff.
Jeff's a wonderful man,
Jeff, thanks for listening and sending in your email. Because I thought these were all your mates. We only got 10 listeners, and here they all are. No, we've got more than that. I tell you what, we've got more
11.
than that. We've got 11 or 12. This is Jeff. He says, "Hi, yes, we must." He's shouting as well. Try different formations if we're going to survive in the Championship. Good point. We'll come back to that. All the teams know how we set up for every game now, and I'm sure we have the personnel to change things. Carrican and Leonard are good midfielders who can dominate and bring something different to the team. O'Brien must sit on the bench. Scalak should be ready for 90 minutes now. That's the point that Graeme made earlier. Don't know what's happened to Wallace, but he needs to sort himself out. But I can see him going in January. Oh, I hope not. I hope you're wrong, Jeff. Bradshaw to start for me too. He's obviously ready. I'm with you on that one, Jeff. Embarrassing loss on Saturday. I'm with you on that one, Jeff. Crossing was woeful, but never enough players in scoring positions. And I'm sure we have a good enough team to stay in the Championship. But match day tactics must change. I don't buy into this argument that 4-4-2 is the only way our team can play. That's what Cass was saying. He thinks that is our best way of playing. But surely if Harris wants to be a manager that goes on and does well at another club, he needs to be able to change his formation. Like Gareth Southgate was good for the England team in finding this three at the back, kind of play three central defenders, trying to protect his midfield because he wasn't sure about his midfield. But I can't. If Southgate keeps with that same formation at the next tournament, England are going to be found out. I mean, we're all being found out here.
Well, let's have a look at the goal that Ted was talking about, or we all talked about with Marlon Romeo. Now, Marlon Romeo, certainly the second goal, was so far up the field he was out of position, and because we're trying to push the wing-backs on, so in some respects that is a change of formation rather than 4-4-2. You're actually pushing on the wing-backs, but you've got to slide across when you see the wing-back out of position. And we didn't do that, and nobody kind of slid across and thought, "Oh, hold it, I'll have to," because he's up the field. So when you change formations, you've got to have players who are bright enough to understand the change of formation.
Players that can play that way.
Players that can play that way.
I'm not sure he changed formation. I think Marlon went galloping up the field. Now, the point you're making is that centre-half should say, "Hold on, there's a gap here, I'll go over there." Nobody did.
Somebody from midfield might have dropped in or something like that. You've got to say, that guy's up the field. I've got to take his defending responsibility.
The thing, and you can throw this back the other way, because Marlon Romeo actually got in behind the guy that should have been marking him was the guy that actually crossed the ball for their goal. So he actually did the right thing. He got behind him, but then got himself offside. And where he went wrong was where he was so far up the field and he got caught offside, he actually gave the ball back to him. Yeah. So the bloke that he actually left, who should have been marking him, was now had the advantage on Marlon because they knocked it to him and off he went. But the thing with formations is you have to have the players to be able to play certain formations. If you haven't got the players, then there's no point in trying it. And England had the players, Joe, with due respect, but whereas with Millwall, I'm not so sure that we could go to a back three or whatever.
That's the point I made with Cash. Holloway always played these different formations, and I'm sure he never had the players.
And we didn't have to play
it.
it. No, they wasn't capable of playing that way.
Okay,
so.
Joe, next one up.
The next one, Georgie,
I hope it's a Welshman.
John Hedges. I can't do Welsh.
Oh no, that's why I said.
Do Welsh. Hello, boyo. Why are substitutions... No, I can't. Why are substitutions made so late in games when the tide is against us? We've mentioned substitutions already. It's a point I've made many times. So we've kind of answered that, have we? Or
yeah, although it's a good point John makes, because I think we're all unhappy with the substitutions being so late in the game. Elliott's done ever so well lately. He's nearly scored on several occasions, but you're giving the boy about 4 minutes' time. I mean, it's ridiculous. These players need to have longer on the field.
Well said, Georgie. Harry, no surname, just Harry said. That might be his surname. Said.
Is that Harry or Harry?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
A relegation battle is on the horizon, and that will feel like a failure to many fans after last season's playoff push. But really, we don't have a good enough squad to repeat that feat. Or do we, Graeme?
I think there are elements of our squad that will frighten teams. I think Neil Harris has got to make a decision about the established players in the team. I think that's going to cause a little bit of a problem in the background, because some of the established players might think that they know more than Neil at the present moment in time. But I think he has, as I said earlier, I think Ryan Leonard's a very good acquisition. I'm hoping he'll come on. I don't buy into this, he's a League One player that Sheffield United couldn't adapt. I don't think Wilder knew what he was buying there or how to use him. So I'm hopeful about him. I think that in Tom Bradshaw we have one of the brightest forwards that we could have got a hold of at that £1 million level. I think we've done well there. So I think there's aspects of the team. The defence, I think, is missing Sean Hutchinson at the present moment in time. I think
Shane's his brother.
Yeah. Sorry, I get I think they're missing him. They're missing his guidance, but I think also there is an issue around the goalkeepers that we've mentioned. I think that. I don't know whether we know who the best goalkeeper is, but I see elements of this side. They're certainly not a poor side, I don't think. I don't think that is, but I see elements that have got to be introduced and meld together, and I think we could have a decent run like we did back in the last season.
You've got to look at it in perspective, mate. We played off the park the team that are actually top of this division on the opening game of the season. We was by far the better side against Middlesbrough. Don't ask me how we drew to all, but we did. But we was by far the better side. The games we've only lost by 1 goal. And every one of them games, we should really have got something out of them.
They've been close.
So after the 3 or 4 games in it, to say there's a relegation, it's still too early. Let's have a look after 10 games, but we do need to start picking points up straight away.
Quickly run through these, boys. I'll get the... if we can keep the answers short, because time's against us here. I know.
If you get the accents right, we'll keep them short.
Right, Millwall Mick, what does he sound like?
We're waiting to find out.
To be sure.
Hi, I'm Millwall Mick. Since interest in our players in terms of millions of pounds, I sense there's been unrest in the team, and that needs to stop. I'll be normal again. Neil Harris says he has a break. He does not want, but I think... Oh, okay. Punctuation, guys, please. Neil Harris says he has a break he does not want, but I think they need it to get back to the Millwall they can be. Jesus Christ, come on, Mick. Change has got to happen, including tactics and first choice players. Wouldn't mid-table be acceptable this season and be realistic expectations at the club? I'd take it.
I'd take it. Yeah, I think so.
But I think there has been a little bit of unrest. I think Mick's right in asking the question, because I think this is, as I said earlier, and to Cass, this is a situation we haven't had for years and years and years, where we have had millions of pounds bid for at least 4 of our players, and that is going to throw any team into a little bit of turmoil.
And I think Mick's question was wonderful, by the way.
It was. I just read it terribly. Yeah. Sorry, Mick. Wayne Hills. We know Wayne. Did Wayne used to phone the show?
He probably does. Wayne.
Wayne, if it's you, thanks for your email. Do you think the squad is stronger now with the additions than the one that finished last season with Marshall? So do you think the squad's stronger now?
Do you, Ted?
Yeah, I do think it's stronger.
Well, I don't.
I do.
See, I don't. I think Saville is... I'm not going to say he's irreplaceable. If Leonard does marvellous, I'd be happy with that. I know we've got Bradshaw, and I haven't even seen the boy yet, so I can't. But I just think last season with Marshall in the team, Marshall was a really good fit in that left wing, something we haven't had since.
I think Scalek will replace him. I think Scalek's a better player.
When he does, then then I'll take this all back. But until then, and the question is, who asked the question?
Who are you?
Wayne.
Well, I'll go with Wayne. I don't think we are.
Okay, and finally, Emma says, are the days of seeing Steve Morrison start for Millwall coming to an end?
You're not talking in a lady accent, then?
No, that's how Emma talks.
Oh, we all know Emma.
Sorry,
I interrupted you. Go on. What did you say?
Are the days of seeing Steve Morrison start for Millwall coming to an end? I think we've already addressed this slightly. He is 35 years old. There's no stopping time.
Yeah, 2 things. Yes, I think he is. I think the problem is actually how you handle taking him out and giving him a smaller bit part role. And I think that might cause a little bit of problem, with the squad and with the manager. But yeah, I think I've noticed a couple of times he's got through balls that he would have got a season ago, or even probably last season. He would, he's not getting there. And he has a role in the side. He's got a tremendous football brain. There's no doubt about that. And if we can incorporate him in maybe a deeper role or whatever, then I'd be interested.
Well, I think the answer is yes, but he's still got a lot to offer.
Yeah, the leadership qualities.
And he's got his badges. He's done his badges, his coaching badges.
That's why he answers the referee so much.
He's on his way, isn't he? Yeah.
Listen, before we go, quickly, Leeds game. we always beat them at the Den, don't we? Surely,
Yeah,
it's
move on.
3 points.
Well, I'm not so
Kelly.
sure this time.
No, he is.
Sorry, boys. I think Leeds are going to be the real McCoy this year. And I know it's been, they've been thinking it's going to be their
Well,
year.
and
They
what do you-
always start well, George, until they play us.
What do you do with McCoys? You eat them up. So there you go. That's what you got to do.
Everybody's been saying that, George, but against Middlesbrough they didn't look so great. And I think a Saturday afternoon down at the Den might find out how good they really are.
That Liam
I'm not
Cooper,
sure they're that good.
Liam Cooper's getting all worked up for it now. So I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Do we want to see him sent off? I don't know.
Anyway,
Keep all your players on.
listen, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for all your emails. Send those in again. No one likes us talking @gmail.com, and we'll read them out on the next show. Enjoy the Leeds game. Thanks for listening, boys. Ted, Graeme, George, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Joe.
You look
Ta-da,
after yourself,
see you
Joe.
later.
We'll see you soon. Come here, lads.
Hey.